Hey, what up YouTube? Welcome back to a new video with Ramsfan YT. And today has been an absolute scorcher in England. Up to 30 degrees, I think, where I've been here. I think it's the hottest day on record in the year. And silly old me has decided, we're going to do some National League predictions today. National League, always wild to predict with so many teams coming out of absolutely nowhere. And possibly having some unexpected results. Some big clubs may not do as well as they expected. Realistically, it's just a bit of fun. I'm not entirely sure who's going to end up where. I don't have lottery winning numbers. And should we get pretty much straight into it? I say so. 24th, I've gone with Braintree Town. Angelo Harrop is youthful and enthusiastic in management terms, but he's inexperienced and yes, gained promotion, but this is a different league completely. And I just think he may be a bit naive coming into the season. They've also made wholesale changes with almost a new starting 11. This is bad as that feel-good factor will have been dampened a bit, and when the going gets tough, they may struggle to get out of a rut and therefore will be relegated. On a side note, they do actually need a more professional-looking website. That thing looks like it was created in the 2000s and hasn't been updated since 2007. 23rd, Wealdstone. Matt Taylor's the manager, and he comes in with EFL experience, but only getting those clubs in dangerous position into relatively safe positions. Actually, sorry, he left them getting from relatively safe positions into dangerous positions. My mind is not operating today. He left Shrewsbury, for example, after 7 defeats in 8. And at Walsall, he took them from being on the cusp of the playoffs to 4 points off the relegation zone. And if the club keeps him the whole season long, it is inevitable that they will be relegated. They have captured some good signings, but I just don't think they have the right manager to make it a success. 22nd, Boston United. Having seen your side a couple of times this season, I can say they have very good fans for one, and an attractive style of play. However, it can be undone by a bit of Route 1 and physicality style of football. And therefore, once they're being found out in terms of how they play, it may plunge them into trouble. Ian Culverhouse is a very successful manager, don't get me wrong, but is unproven at the National League level, so really hard to measure. Mitch Roberts is a questionable acquisition, seeing he got relegated from the National League last season. Tony Weston is unproven. Cameron Green is National League South standard, and they've brought in several other players from mid-table from the league below. It doesn't really inspire me with confidence. I'm sure you can get that. And so I think it's going to be a relegation spot for me. 21st, Gateshead. They must be very disappointed about being barred from the playoffs last season. It's likely they will begin construction of a new stadium as soon as possible, with rumours that the council prefers to sell the new Gateshead International Stadium instead of extending the lease on it. Therefore, I don't know how much investment there will be. But also, why would players want to come to the Heat with the knowledge that they can't get promoted in the short term, realistically? Rob Elliott is still inexperienced, and yes, he did well in the first season, but we've yet to see the man over man when the going gets a bit more tough. And realistically, with Gateshead looking over their shoulders at times this season, I think, then I don't see him being the right man for the job either. 20th, Ebbsfleet United. Danny Surley is a really weird appointment as a manager, and I can't see beyond this season being a struggle for the Fleet. Tom Dallison comes in with good experience of avoiding relegation. Jeff Tanga is a risk, but apparently a lot of clubs in the National League were after him. Wes Fongunk spent most of his career in mid-table in the National League. Giles Phillips got relegated from the National League last season. Tal Cordner struggled last season, it must be admitted, and I'm not going to decide if it could be mid-table, but are more likely to be thrust into a relegation battle come the end of the season. 19th, Yeovil Town. Yes, they've been promoted, But let's not get overexcited about this season coming up. It needs to be one of stability and the continual rebuilding of a project. After all, Cooper was the same manager that got Yeovil relegated from the National League in the first place. Matt Gould is more of a goalkeeper to improve the other goalkeepers, so is unlikely to come in as a number one. Ollie Wright still has to prove himself at this level, having done well in the league below. Aaron Jarvis has been relegated 3 times in the past and has never been promoted, so that is a risky signing in itself. Jordan Thomas is yet to really prove himself to be a top-end player. Finn Cousin Dawson was also relegated last season from a tier below. Therefore, this just looks like a side looking over its shoulder, but they will just about survive. 18th Tamworth. This team had a phenomenal defence last season, but this isn't regional football anymore, with most clubs being full-time in the National League. Andy Peakes is obviously a very successful manager, but has never played or managed this high before, so probably doesn't know that much coming into the season. Aidan Hollis comes in with experience in the National League and League Two, knowing what it takes to be competitive. Alex Fletcher, I'm not convinced on for a side in the National League yet. Kenny Diddy is at the top end of the National League North, and he's a good old-fashioned centre-half, so he's capable to help this great defence. I'm looking forward to seeing him. Lissy Moore is a more box-to-box midfielder. Not sure whether he can make too much difference to the squad overall. Tom McGlinchley is coming in to prove himself at this level, so we'll see. Miracle Okafor is going to make a big jump. What I'm seeing is a recruitment from lower levels to prove themselves, so it may be difficult to start, but they will grow into this level and survive comfortably come the end of the season. 17th, Altrincham. Last season they overachieved, but if you look at their past record, they finished 17th in 2020-21, 14th in 2021-22, and 17th in 2022-23. Therefore, this is a pattern of being mid-table, and yes, Phil Parkinson is a good manager, but hasn't actually achieved a promotion yet, I say, and that can seep really into the squad's mentality as well. A lot of players have left, and they definitely haven't adequately replaced that loss of quality. And mainly the experience is what I'm more concerned of those players who have left. That was invaluable to that squad getting so high up the league. 16th, Eastleigh. A team that always seems to end up in mid-table, really, since the 2016-17 season, with only one season where they didn't finish in mid-table. Kelvin Davis is a risky appointment. He's a bit inexperienced managing senior football, but he does have links with Southampton, so could get some exciting loanee acquisitions. From a manager's spell so far, he's looking a very typical mid-table form for me. Lloyd Humphreys comes off a very positive spell with Weston-super-Mare, having won Mare Player of the Season last season, but that was in the mid-table in the league below. Richard Brinley is vastly experienced in this league, so can add that expertise to make sure that the club remains stable and not dragged into the relegation battle they had last season. Tyree Shade is a positive signing with him being a St Kitts and Nevis international. Angel Warrior, I don't know, is a huge gamble for me. Deji Santana needs a consistent run of games to prove himself. Luis Fernandez has spent the last couple of seasons in the lower end of the National League South, but was Hampton and Richmond Borough's Player of the Season last season. So mid-table for me. 15th, Oldham Athletic. Although a look at the table deceives you into thinking that they were in the playoff hunt last season, they never were. They were spending most of the season really floating in mid-table if we looked at it. This league is also a trap where it can take numerous seasons for the club to find the right formula to escape. Just ask the Notts Counties, the Chesterfields, the Southends, the Yeovils, and Scunthorpes, all of this world, who have all had mixed results in this league. Mickey Mellon has been a mid-table manager for the entirety of the 2020s, and we could begin to question whether his tactics actually breed success now at the very top end of the table. Some of the signings, though, are of decent standings, but they've also lost some of their stronger players, such as Hallam Hope and Mark Shelton, were both good squad rotational players and provided some really good experience for that dressing room. I think a mixed bag of a season, so mid-table. 14th, York City. Adam Hinshelwood has just had a very successful season with Worthing and helped York to survival during the second half of last season. In those 11 games last season, he had a form which would lead the side to mid-table. Ricky Aguirre had played well under Hinshelwood because he was previously at Worthing last season, so clearly matches the philosophy the manager is trying to implement. Darragh O'Connor is a signing I'm uncertain on, with the Scottish leagues not really being comparable with the English ones, but is also the fact he's never played senior football apart from the EFL trophy in England. Alex Hunt had a successful loan spell with York last season, which has now been made permanent. Tyree Sinclair has just had the most successful season with Rochdale. Ollie Pearce has a good goal-scoring record at Worthing, having played under Hinshelwood before, and I mean a very good goal-scoring record. Ashley Nathaniel George has just had a great spell with Maidenhead United, with them winning their Player of the Season in 2022-23. Joe Felix also played under Hinshelwood. Harrison Mayle is a poor acquisition in my opinion, as he has just led in 85 goals with Dorking last season. Although, admittedly, they may not all have been his fault, but you've got to point some of the fingers to the goalkeeper, and it's just a risky appointment. I'm also worried about the mass termination of contracts at this club, and he's built a team to try and be competitive in this league, but I think it will be no more than mid-table for me. 13th, Southend United. Do we even know if they can finish the season? I mean, they could, for all we know, be liquidated, and I dare hope that they just don't get liquidated, because they are a fantastic club with a fantastic fan base, and this owner is absolutely running the club into the ground, but out of his own ego and self worth to go and gain as much money as he can from the club by the looks of it. At present, that owner is still playing silly buggers with a stadium as well. We don't know whether they're going to play at Root Hall or whether he's going to move to that new farm academy or whatever out in the suburbs, which is still nowhere near being built. Yes, this club has been galvanised under adversity. We saw that last season in so many games. But you cannot survive on galvanisation alone, or even aim for the playoffs again, in my opinion. Mid-table is a more than generous position for me, but I think it's likely because Kevin Maher, I don't know, has done an excellent job and is still doing that fantastic job at keeping the club on the pitch looking positive so far. And the club has had the quietest transfer window in the National League. And I don't know if they will be able to be that competitive this year with that lack of playing budget, with the owner bleeding the club dry. 12th, Sutton United. It's difficult for a club to recover from the first season from being relegated from the EFL. We already know that the gap between the two divisions isn't huge in both directions. We've seen Wrexham just getting back-to-back promotions, Stockport only taking a couple of seasons to get back up another league again. We've seen several clubs, Harrogate, Barrow, Sutton recently as well, all competing towards the top end of that table, aiming for the playoffs. So yeah, it's not much difference, and so why would they be much better in the league below? Now, for this season, I can see Sutton floating in mid-table, as they have a season pondering on how to improve and make sure they get promoted again. But they have to do things differently this time, I think. Steve Morrison is an ambitious managerial appointment with his promotion with Hornchurch last season, but that is a very different goal for playing standard, let's be honest. Southern, or is it Isthmian League? I can't quite remember. Football is not as good as the National League. But he has played EFL football. He was at the Championship with Cardiff, but that had quite mixed results, with him ending in 18th, I think it was, which makes him think he will stabilise the club as long as he learns not to chuck players under the bus in front of the media when things go wrong. I don't know whether it's naivety or stupidity, but replacing the entire team in one foul swoop means that it will take an absolute age to click. And the team will have to be in transition for most of this season for me. And that's why they will be in mid-table. 11th, Forest Green Rovers. Steve Cotterill being this low down the pyramid is a weird sight to behold, to be fair. Now, I won't take away from the successes during the 1990s in non-league, in the 2000s, in the 2010s, But let's look at the last 5 years of management, as that's where you can really get a measure of how successful he has been. He couldn't prevent Forest Green relegation last season, and they definitely could have had the chance, with Colchester looking not that great and Sutton looking dead and buried for most of it. He was mid-table to low mid-table with Shrewsbury, and he could only scrape survival with Birmingham City. This doesn't look like a good appointment now for the near future as much, does it? And I imagine a mid-table finish would be on the cards here. However, we do know that the funds will be made available with green entrepreneur Dale Vince running the club. There has been a lot of departures so far, but not many positive incomings. Yes, they are all EFL experienced, but not in enough quantities to replace that vast losses and exodus that they have just experienced. 10th, Hartlepool United. The ownership is never far away from the wrath of the fans here, are they? Darren Sarll is an interesting manager. At Woking, he managed to get them into the playoffs in his first season, but plunged them into a relegation battle last season. Although, enlightened today, I think that the news has just proven probably why it was so difficult. So fans will point at both, inevitably. They'll say, oh, he's a promotion, he'll get us playoffs, and others will say, no, get them into a relegation scrap. But he did also reach the National League playoffs with Yeovil, so let's not sleep on that. What I think you need to take him as a real holistic viewpoint. He's good at improving youngsters, and has spells that are good and spells that are bad. That is why I think he will push Hartlepool to being challenging for the playoffs, but never look like they will actually make it. Greg Sloggett, questionable signing for me, really hasn't managed to cut it in England so far. Adam Campbell is a northeastern lad himself and helped Crawley last season to get promoted. And despite being offered a contract at the League One club, he decided to help out the pool. So it really shows the measure of a signing of that one. Luke Jarman helped Fylde get promoted and then survive. Nathan Sharon comes in with on the back of 2 ever-present seasons with Oldham. Getting these players with experience of battling for promotion and a slow build up does mean that there will certainly be an outside shout for playoffs, but I think 10th for now is a certainly good building block to improve and get playoffs probably the season after. 9th, Aldershot Town. I saw them last season and they do play a lot of possession-based football, which bore mixed results, so I can see a similar season to last. Looking like they could make the playoffs, but when the pressure is on, they will struggle and therefore dip to just outside the playoffs come the end of the season. Tommy Witherington is a successful manager with a win percentage enough to challenge for the playoffs, but not enough to reach them. Kai Corbett is inexperienced, so we await to see his performances coming in. Ryan Jones is a good player in the National League South, but it certainly hasn't really shown enough yet to be the National League standard. Cameron Hargreaves is also a person to have so far performed better in Tier 6. Luke Jenkins has just had a phenomenal season with Chelmsford City, getting a call up to the England C squad, so clearly one of the best in non-league. Marcus Dewhurst has had a decent spell with Wealdstone, and is someone brought in to keep the keepers on their toes, definitely. Madge's performances were consistent last season for Banbury in the National League North. They just unfortunately didn't do that well in it. It's an interesting tactic of recruiting good Tier 6 players with potential and youth, seeing if they can make the cut in the league above. The one issue is it will take time to integrate. These players, hence, are in a transition period, learning of a job, and this is why I think 9th place, leaving it either a bit little too late for the playoffs or struggling to cope under the pressure. 8th, AFC Fylde. There is always at least one side that causes a great shock to the league. Both Gateshead and Aldershot did it last season. I think Woking did it the season before with Boreham Wood. All sorts of ones. Chris Beach did a good job at keeping Fylde above the relegation zone. And at Carlisle, of his previous club, he kept them safe from relegation, and then guided them to the top end of the very top position of the League Two, only for COVID to cause chaos, and eventually finished 10th after many postponements due to waterlogged pitches and all having to be rammed together in the last few days of the season. Now, hopefully, we don't have another global pandemic. I don't think any of us want that. And hopefully, we don't have any bad weather that we've just seen this season gone by. But we will never know in the parallel universe if neither of them events did happen at the same time. But I do think he will be incredibly successful at Fylde. At Fylde, he will implement a very successful counter-attacking football, which will work well with a club the size of Fylde, who comes in with very little expectations, but huge potential. 7th, Rochdale. A football club that is slowly getting back on its feet, I would say, but they are also a visionary club with good teamwork and aspirations. Jimmy McNulty has both the brains and passion of a man of a manager to really get this club back to where they deserve to be. Luke McNicholas plays well as a goalkeeper who plays well from the back. Aaron Henry comes in with National League to League One experience. Taran Alarakia is a Tanzanian international, having spent the last 2 seasons making 38 appearances in each of the last 2 seasons for Wealdstone. So maybe a bit more of a mid-table player for sure, but certainly a good one. Sam Beckwith has almost 100 National League appearances at the tender age of only 22, but is also someone with the potential of still being a good EFL player. Aidan Barlow comes in with EFL experience and is still young. And as long they'll get a load of recruitment for the history of ascribed to this club and the size of the stadium and the fan base. This all just shows recruitment really for other players who are young, having been with either EFL clubs or in the National League a bit more recently, but certainly performing well in it. That can work as a really successful way to get results on the pitch, actually, as a form of recruitment. 6th, Maidenhead United. Same with Fylde, maybe a club to have a surprisingly good season. Alan Devonshire is a very experienced manager, having been with his club since 2015. He achieved promotion with his club in 2016-17 from the National League South, so does know what it takes to get a team promoted. This club is always up for the fight, though. Like, whenever fan bases leave that, they always say it's been a bit of a scrap and a good game, with Maidenhead looking really up for it. They're like little yapping puppies, aren't they? But that is a passion within this club, and that can really be forged into scrapping out results. If they scrap out enough results this season, I can definitely see it pushing to playoffs. At present, they will have to keep it back. They have kept that close-knit squad together, which is good, because it means they will be able to improve together as a unit, which will definitely deliver results. As I say, teamwork makes the dream work. That was incredibly cringe, and I just apologise for everyone who's just cringed from that. 5th, Dagenham and Redbridge. Let's not forget they have all the infrastructure to be an EFL club. The name still holds certain weight to it in terms of recruitment. Still got the stadium, still got the training ground, and Ben Stevens is currently on a really decent run of form from the end of the last season. And if he can continue that feel-good factor, then maybe he will be able to lead into playoffs. They've brought in numerous promising youngsters, which comes in with hunger to do well, and that can bring in great results. 4th, Woking. Now, I obviously didn't know, because I only found out this morning, but Woking are on the verge of potentially entering administration. Now, I'm not going to do a last-minute change of predictions, because I think that galvanising spirit can get them into the playoffs. But I will still read what I said previously in my notes, but just bear it in mind that it was before I knew about them being like £3.25 million in debt and a real gambling on the FA Cup and FA Trophy, which didn't pay off. Stupid owner. But if they do well, it will definitely look more appealing to investors. Last season, though, I think was a blip of the season. Before then, they finished 4th in the season before that. If they can rekindle that season, then I think they will reach the playoffs. Michael Doyle is an interesting manager to have. Whether he's the person to get the team back on track does remain to be seen, but I have every faith in him. Max Dyche was doing so well with Woking when he was recalled by Northampton due to their injury crisis, when I has come back to the club again on loan. So see if he can rekindle that a little bit of magic he had. Jacob Jones just completed a season in the Scottish League One with Cove Rangers. Yeah. Harry Buterman comes in as being a club legend at Sutton United, having promoted from a National League with them and reaching a lofty summit of 8th in League Two and an EFL Trophy final. Kean Harris won the EFL Trophy in promotion from League Two, as well as having a good season with Aldershot last season, helping them to get a few points off from the playoffs. Timmy Odusina had a great loan spell with Woking, but is also a successful player in non-league terms, having won the FA Trophy and won the National League playoffs with Hartlepool. And Dale German comes in, who was captain of the Barnet side last season, which reached the playoff finals. These are phenomenal signings and are a sign of a team looking for playoffs, not one which looks like we're about to go out of business, do they? Third, SC Halifax Town. This team has been improving season after season. We saw them in the FA Trophy final a couple of seasons ago. They were, I can't remember if it was a playoff last season or it was a season before, but they've been improving anyway. Chris Millington, though, has been the man to make this all happen. He was the assistant manager here from 2019 to 2022 and the first team manager since then. Adam Alimi Adatoro is inexperienced but is a solid height for a centre back, so that could be a shrewd bit of business. Will Smith, no, not the actor, has spent the last 5 seasons with Harrogate, although the last 2 have been dotted with loan spells. However, he did get Harrogate promoted from the National League and won the FA Trophy with them. Tom Pugh is someone I'm a little bit more uncertain on signing. So it's a bit mixed bag in terms of recruitment, I would say. But the man management at Millington could get success for Shea on the pitch. Second, Solihull Moors. Last season, Solihull did pretty well to reach the FA Trophy final. The playoff finals as well, only to fall short, both due to losing the penalty shootout. Now, that's not really fair, is it? It is unfortunate in a sense they didn't win anything, but it proves that Andy Wing can bring results on the pitch, because realistically, penalties are a lottery in terms of results. And he did a great result with Banbury before then, earning promotion with that club from the Southern League, with them being a team that certainly weren't expected to get promoted, although they did have a good FA Cup run as well. This has put Solihull really on the map as these last 2 major competitions, getting into the playing at Wembley twice in a couple of weeks, and shows really the potential of the club going somewhere. And this has shown in recruitment, it really has. Laurie Walker, who has spent the last 2 seasons with Barnet, who finished in the playoffs for them last 2 seasons and won the Player of the Season in his first season there. Sam Bowen has just had a great season with Wealdstone, and he is good both in defence and attack, reading the game really well. And finally, Ollie Tipton, who is really highly rated, I hear, at Wolves Academy. The only reason they won't win the league is because Sabara, Maycock, and Stearman, although Stearman retired, all left, and that does leave a bit of experience and really good players and a bit of a void to fill. First, Barnet. They have the stadium and the history of playing in the EFL. Dean Brennan had a lengthy spell here already, but he has a really good win percentage when he does get that longest stint in charge. They have reduced the average age, but have also brought in people with experience who are approaching the peak years of their career. Billy Clifford won promotion from National League South in 2019-20. Reece Brown is an Antigua and Barbudan international who won the National League in 2020-21, the FA Youth Cup, and was runners-up in the FA Trophy. Miles Kenlock has championship experience. Nick Hayes has spent the second half of last season on loan at Solihull, but just having the same success as I just mentioned. The National League and Barnet Starman loanee Anthony Hartigan is now back on a permanent basis. Mark Shelton has won the National League North and National League playoffs twice. Nicola Tavares is experienced in the National League despite being only 25. Joe Kesey was a runners-up in the AFL Trophy. And Jermaine Francis is a Granada international and had a really successful season last season, reaching the National League South playoff semi-final. What all these signings show are the players at the peak of their game having experience of promotion and also potentially experienced of the league above. If you enjoy this video, Please subscribe. Please go on a different video. We're going to try and hit 150 subscribers by the end of this scorching summer. So, well, scorching today hasn't been all summer, but by the end of summer, we're looking for 150. Christopher Lawledge, Barnet for me to win the league. Me too. Absolutely guaranteed. I can't see beyond it. Absolute fantastic facilities at the Hive. Just mentioned all the great acquisitions they've made. Realistically, they are a club going places and are going back to the EFL. But see you later. We'll have the League 2 predictions out next week on Friday. Goodbye for now.